Walk onto the practice fields in Latrobe right now, and you can practically taste the humidity in the air. Sure, that's just August in Pennsylvania, but there is an entirely different kind of heat radiating through the Pittsburgh Steelers facility this year, a crushing, franchise-altering pressure that you can just feel in your bones. Look, this isn't just another routine training camp. What we are witnessing right now is a monumental, high-stakes collision between the old guard of Pittsburgh football and the brand-new Mike McCarthy regime, and it's all centered around the single most vital, unforgiving position in all of sports. To truly understand the weight of this moment, you have to look at the history. You have to realize that for over half a century, the Pittsburgh Steelers were the absolute global standard for organizational stability. Think about it. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. 3 head coaches in over 50 years. That is unheard of. They didn't do drama, they didn't do rapid, chaotic transitions. But right now, we are looking at a quarterback room that is teetering on the absolute edge of chaos, operating under a brand new head coach who is desperately trying to win right this second. And the decisions being made on this practice grass over the next few weeks, they aren't just going to define a 53-man roster. They could completely reshape the power dynamic of the entire AFC before the real games even begin. So let's dive into exactly how this explainer of the Steelers' current crisis breaks down.
Now, this quote you're seeing, this isn't a hot take from some random talking head on morning television just desperately searching for clicks. This is a dire, ominous warning from a franchise legend. Ben Roethlisberger recently spoke out on his podcast, and he is looking directly at Mike McCarthy's current preseason strategy and throwing a massive red flag on the play. And let's be absolutely clear about why Roethlisberger's opinion holds so much immense gravity in this specific situation. For 18 years, Big Ben completely embodied the physical, brutal, bone-crunching reality of AFC North football. He took the massive hits. He played through the broken noses, the sprained joints, the relentless defensive pressure. He knows exactly what the physical toll of this game feels like, and he knows exactly what it takes to actually survive a season in the Steel City. When Ben Roethlisberger speaks about the offensive culture in Pittsburgh, you stop what you're doing and you listen. And right now, he is making it abundantly clear that he fiercely disagrees with how this new coaching staff is handling their 42-year-old starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Roethlisberger isn't just casually commenting on a coaching decision here. He is literally pointing out a catastrophic risk that is unfolding right in front of our eyes.
To understand exactly why Big Ben is sounding the alarm so loudly, you really have to look at the unprecedented organizational chaos over the last 2 years. The Steelers went from being the absolute model of patience to a franchise operating at a chaotic warp speed. Just look at these tectonic shifts. At the end of the 2025 season, following a devastating playoff loss, Mike Tomlin, the absolute bedrock of this organization, walks away. During his final draft, almost as a developmental lottery ticket, the team takes Will Howard in the 6th round. Then, fast forward to 2026. The front office pivots entirely. Mike McCarthy is brought in to run the show, and he is tasked with winning a Super Bowl immediately. No rebuilds, no grace period. McCarthy immediately helps handpick his own guy, drafting Drew Aller in the 3rd round. And hovering above all of this roster whiplash is Aaron Rodgers, embarking on what is widely expected to be his final ride in the NFL. Think about that dynamic for a second. You have 2 different young quarterbacks drafted by 2 completely different coaching regimes. Sitting behind a legendary starter was a ticking clock on his career. This isn't just a simple roster transition. It's a powder keg waiting for a spark. Which brings us to the specific number that is generating all of the tension on the practice field right now. 60. As in, up to 60 live preseason snaps. Mike McCarthy is seriously contemplating giving Aaron Rodgers roughly 20 snaps a game over the exhibition schedule. Now you might be wondering, why is this such a big deal? Well, this is a highly controversial gamble, especially when you look at McCarthy's own track record. During his tenures in Green Bay and Dallas, McCarthy was famous for leaning toward protecting his veteran stars in August. He always prioritized Week 1 health over exhibition reps. So, what's with this sudden deviation? Is it a desperate attempt to force team chemistry? Is he trying to violently install his system on a new roster? Roethlisberger is looking at this number of 60 snaps and flat out asking, why? Rodgers already knows McCarthy's offensive system inside and out from their glory days in Green Bay. The typical justification for playing an old veteran in August is building chemistry and learning the playbook. But Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to learn this playbook. He practically wrote chapters of it. So why in the world would you risk your most prized, irreplaceable asset for 60 meaningless snaps against undrafted rookies who are fighting for their professional lives and tackling like absolute heat-seeking missiles? But the sheer gravity of this entire situation rests on a different number entirely. 42. Aaron Rodgers is 42 years old. Keeping him upright, healthy, and on the field is arguably the single most important factor for the Steelers' success in 2026.
Period. We all remember the collective gasp from the entire football world when his first season with the New York Jets ended almost immediately. 4 snaps. That's all it took. One awkward plant on the MetLife turf and a torn Achilles completely destroyed an entire season of hype and hope. That ghost, that lingering shadow, is hanging heavily over Latrobe right now. Look, history doesn't necessarily have to repeat itself, but age introduces an undeniable, sobering risk that you just can't ignore. The human body at 42 years old simply does not recover the way it does at 22. Every single time Rodgers drops back in a game that doesn't actually count in the standings, it is a massive, terrifying roll of the dice. Every unnecessary blindside hit, every chaotic pocket collapse in the preseason exposes him and this entire franchise to absolute disaster. But here's the thing, the physical danger to Rodgers is really only half of the crisis here. The hidden cost of these preseason snaps is a brutal double-edged sword. Every single snap that Rodgers takes is an irreplaceable rep that is completely stolen from unproven prospects who desperately need that live action. Time on the field in August is a zero-sum game in the NFL. You cannot manufacture more time. You can't just create extra practice periods. Roethlisberger argued that Rodgers should take maybe one single scripted series, get a sweat going, and then immediately hand the keys over to the backups, because taking 20 snaps a game completely erases the evaluation time for the young guys. Let's look at Will Howard specifically. Howard lost almost his entire rookie preseason to a severe hand injury. Now, for a quarterback, a hand injury isn't just pain you play through. It destroys your grip, it ruins your throwing mechanics, and it robs you of your ability to take live fire reps. His development was entirely stalled. Because of that, he is essentially a rookie again this August. By playing Rodgers so much, McCarthy is drastically limiting Howard's absolutely crucial recovery reps, while simultaneously stalling the vital integration time for the actual new rookie, Drew Aller. That brings us to Section 1, the backup battlefield, featuring Howard versus Rudolph. Let's get into it. Because of Rodgers' age and his recent injury history, the backup quarterback position in Pittsburgh isn't just a guy holding a clipboard, wearing a baseball cap, and charting plays on Sundays. Not even close. Whoever wins this job is one awkward tackle away from taking over a team with explicit, undeniable Super Bowl aspirations. The battle lines are completely drawn in camp, and it's the classic NFL archetype clash. On one side, you have Mason Rudolph, the steady, low-risk veteran. And let's not forget Rudolph's history here. He has stepped into the absolute fire for this franchise before. He took brutal, scary hits in 2019. He survived. He knows the building, he is calm, he is accurate, and most importantly, he knows exactly how to command an NFL huddle when the original game plan flies out the window and chaos ensues. Then on the other side, you have Will Howard. Raw, chaotic, wildly athletic, highly mobile, with an incredibly high ceiling. But he's entirely unproven, especially after that hand injury robbed him of those vital live reps we just talked about. The Steelers desperately want to see what they have in Howard's massive physical tools, but they also know exactly the safe, reliable floor that Mason Rudolph provides. But as we know, training camp isn't played on a whiteboard. It's played on grass against a defense that is actively trying to break your will. Enter defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. Graham is practically weaponizing the practice field right now. He isn't out there running vanilla, generic preseason looks just to get guys a sweat. Absolutely not. He's throwing exotic, heavily disguised coverages, constantly shifting fronts, and intense, terrifying pressure packages directly at these backup quarterbacks. Picture this, a cover zero blitz where the linebackers are crowding the A-gaps, making it look like they're coming right up the middle, only to bail at the very last second, while a nickel corner comes screaming off the edge totally untouched. Graham is forcing these young quarterbacks to identify the actual rush post snap. He's speeding up their internal clocks to dangerous levels, and he's creating maximum confusion on every single play. Graham is effectively acting as the crucible here, burning away all the draft hype and the college pedigree to reveal who can actually process NFL speed when a 250-pound edge rusher is breathing right down their neck. And inside that crucible Graham has created, a very stark reality is starting to emerge on the practice field. When faced with Graham's simulated pressures and those terrifying zero blitzes, Mason Rudolph is operating with surgical, veteran precision. Now, is he out there making highlight reel, 50-yard, off-platform wow throws? No, he isn't. But the thing is, he doesn't need to. He is recognizing the pressure before the snap, sliding the offensive line protection, remaining totally calm in the pocket, hitting his hot routes, and most importantly, he is protecting the football. He's surviving the down. Will Howard, on the other hand, is hesitating. While he still shows these unbelievable flashes of brilliant jaw-dropping athleticism that make scouts drool, the cost of his mistakes is mounting rapidly. Those heavily disguised looks are totally exposing his lack of live-fire NFL experience. He's double-clutching the ball, he's throwing late into tight double coverage, and he's forcing turnovers. In the NFL, a young developmental quarterback can survive having a bad Tuesday practice. But when you are competing for the primary backup job behind a 42-year-old starter on a roster built to win right now, turnovers are the ultimate, unforgivable sin. This dynamic creates a truly fascinating, almost historical psychological dilemma for the Pittsburgh front office. General managers all across the NFL constantly fall victim to the massive allure of developmental upside. It is an intoxicating idea. It's the belief that if you just give a raw physical freak enough time, enough patience, and enough coaching, they will eventually unlock an elite, franchise-altering ceiling. It's the absolute nightmare fear of cutting a raw talent today, only to watch them turn into a superstar for a division rival 3 years down the road. The Steelers organization inherently wants to see Will Howard succeed because his upside is undeniably higher than a veteran like Rudolph, whose ceiling was pretty much established years ago. But they are crashing headfirst into the sobering reality of his current erratic execution on the field. You simply cannot rely on future potential if the present reality means handing the football over to the opposing defense in the fourth quarter of a tight playoff race. Just listen to this stark assessment from Steelers beat reporter Nick Farabaugh. He is the boots on the ground. He's the eyes and ears in Latrobe, watching every single snap, tracking every single chartable throw of this entire camp. He notes that while the team might internally hope and pray for Howard's athleticism to magically win the job, the practice tape simply does not lie. Farabaugh states it incredibly clearly. I think there's been enough of a big gap to where I would definitely go with Rudolph right now. That is a remarkably heavy statement. It underscores the fact that Rudolph is simply operating on a fundamentally safer, significantly more reliable level than Howard. When Patrick Graham's defense brings the intense heat, Mason Rudolph provides immediate, calming answers. Right now, Will Howard is only providing terrifying questions that this coaching staff doesn't have time to answer. Moving on to Section 2. The post-Rodgers era, and why the next decade of football in Pittsburgh is currently hanging in the balance. We really need to zoom out to the macro level here, because this whole situation is about so much more than just who gets to hold a clipboard on the sideline in Week 1. Because Aaron Rodgers is definitively on his final ride in the league, this 2026 backup quarterback battle is quite literally a live, high-stakes audition for the next decade of Pittsburgh football. Whoever emerges from this brutal August gauntlet could very well be handed the keys to the entire franchise in 2027. And when you actually break down the roster math, the numbers are absolutely agonizing for Mike McCarthy. Standard NFL rosters strictly carry a 53-man limit. Now, you might be thinking about the league's emergency third quarterback rule. Yes, teams can dress a third QB without burning an active roster spot on game day, but here is the catch. That player still has to be on the initial 53-man roster to qualify. You have Rodgers, locked his QB1. You have Drew Aller, a third-round rookie investment who absolutely isn't getting cut under any circumstances. Teams almost never carry 4 quarterbacks on the active roster. That means between Will Howard and Mason Rudolph, there's likely only one chair left when the music finally stops in late August. Someone is getting cut, exposed to the waiver wire, and potentially lost forever. Then you have to add in the hidden, often ruthless front office politics that secretly drive so many NFL decisions. The draft capital divide between these players is massive. Will Howard was a 6th-round pick, and crucially, he was drafted by the previous regime under Mike Tomlin. Drew Aller, on the other hand, is a 3rd-round pick who was handpicked by the current head coach, Mike McCarthy. In the cutthroat world of the NFL, there is a massive, undeniable difference between my guy and his guy. Draft pedigree and the specific coaching regime that actually selected you provide an invisible shield against being cut. Howard isn't just battling his own mechanical inconsistencies and Mason Rudolph's vast veteran experience. He has to actively overcome the inherent bias of a brand new coaching staff that has absolutely zero institutional loyalty to him. If Aller struggles in camp, McCarthy will fiercely protect him because it's his draft pick. It's his reputation on the line. If Howard struggles, he's entirely unprotected. So this ultimate franchise-defining question hangs incredibly heavily in the muggy Pennsylvania air right now. And honestly, Mike McCarthy's own future job security might hinge entirely on the answer. What will he do? Will he choose the absolute safety of a known veteran in Mason Rudolph? A trusted, reliable shield to protect the offense and his own win-loss record if Aaron Rodgers goes down? Or will he gamble on the potential and choose the untamed raw sword of Will Howard, praying that the upside eventually catches up to the execution before it costs them games? Think about the trap here. If McCarthy cuts Rudolph, keeps Howard, and Howard bombs in a critical regular season game, the fans and ownership will absolutely demand answers. But if he cuts Howard to play it safe and Howard develops into a star for another team, McCarthy looks deeply foolish.
It is the absolute classic NFL dilemma of high floor versus high ceiling, amplified to a deafening volume by a rapidly closing championship window.
The burden of expectations in Pittsburgh right now is simply crushing. Ben Roethlisberger clearly sees the train wreck coming. Wasting vital preseason snaps on a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers is a critical error when a fierce, franchise-defining battle is happening right behind him. The Steelers have to figure out their future, and they have to do it against the incredibly fast-ticking clock of August, all under the intense scrutiny of a historically demanding fan base that is utterly starved for a return to Super Bowl glory. Make no mistake, one wrong decision by McCarthy, whether it's getting Rodgers hurt in a totally meaningless exhibition game, cutting the wrong developmental prospect, or trusting an erratic backup when the bullets start flying for real in September, could utterly derail a Super Bowl window before the leaves even begin to change colors.
As we watch this high-stakes drama continue to unfold in Latrobe, I really want to hear your take on all of this. Do you think McCarthy should just sit Rodgers for the entire preseason to protect him? And who are you personally taking in this backup battle? The steady, proven hand of Mason Rudolph, or the raw, explosive upside of Will Howard? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And hey, if you want to stay ahead of the curve on every single massive storyline happening across the league, you absolutely need to subscribe to NFL Nexus. Drop a like on this explainer, share your opinion in the comments, and seriously consider supporting the channel by becoming a member today so we can keep bringing you these deep dive explainers week in and week out. Until next time, keep your eyes on the gridiron.